Hey everybody, welcome to The Point. I'm your guest host, Dave Rubin. Fear not, this is not what Anna looks like without makeup. This actually is somebody else. And we have a jam-packed, informative, over-the-top, bonkers show for you. We're going to be talking about the departure of Michele Bachmann, which I'm sure everyone here is very excited about. A California grocery store chain that they're offering both leaded and unleaded candy. Interesting. The internet is abuzz all over one of New York high school's cutest couples. They might be gay. And everyone's making a fuss over Michael Douglas, who got cancer from Catherine Zeta-Jones' vagina. I can say vagina, right?
Mm-hmm. You just did.
There you go.
Say it.
All right, very good. And then, of course, in the Off Their Feed segment, we're going to take some of the best tweets of the week, and we are going to give you our feelings on them in 140 characters or less. So let's get right to it and meet our all-star celebrity panel. First up, we have Brett Erlich. He's a comedian who provides hilarious daily commentaries in his Brett's Talking segments on the War Room on Current TV. Next up, we have Desi Doyen. She's the co-host, along with Brad Friedman, of the fabulously popular, entertaining, and informative, nationally syndicated radio show, The Green News Report.
Lots of adjectives.
There were a lot of words in a row on that one. And I think I can add a couple words to this one. Malcolm Fleschner, he's the producer here at The Point, an occasional last-minute fill-in panelist on The Point when we are truly and horrifically desperate and people have canceled. Hello, Malcolm.
I get some adjectives too. I get horrible and not the same ones Desi got, but
They're well earned.
Yeah, no, I deserve them.
Yeah, and by the way, for the record, nowhere on my notes did it have the booing and the hissing. That was
that was extra.
That was the crew.
Authentic. That was legitimate, genuine booing.
Little shout out for you. All right, so we got a great show for you, and in this first segment, we want to talk about de-extinction. This is basically Jurassic Park coming to life. Dinosaurs are coming back. Yeah, that's right, and not just in Jurassic Park 4. De-extinction is the catch-all term that scientists use for the process of breeding and reintroducing extinct species like the woolly mammoth, the passenger pigeon, the saber-toothed tiger, and hopefully my favorite, the dodo bird. And let's take a look at some video, and then we're going to talk about it.
Are we playing God with de-extinction? Did we play God when we drove most of these species to extinction?
Why should we bring these species back? It varies with the species.
You know, it was entirely human efforts that made it extinct.
Extinct species and endangered species are part of one continuum.
One of the important questions, of course, if you do contemplate in a project like this, a de-extinction project, of bringing an animal like that back, what are you going to do with it?
That's actually one of the more difficult questions because, why do we want to clone the mammoth? And can you clone it?
Because as we say, cloning one animal or bringing back one extinct animal, that's interesting, but that's not a population.
How do we introduce genetic variation?
If we could get this animal back, the throne for that king of beasts is still warm.
I don't think we'll bring it back to life. Maybe that will happen one day in the future. But what we can do is learn a lot more about it by studying its genetic makeup.
If it looks like a passenger pigeon, is it a passenger pigeon? If it behaves like one, is it a passenger pigeon? Or does it have to be an exact duplicate of the genome?
And the first goal we would have is say, well, let's get it back into its natural environment. Let it restore the balance in that ecosystem.
When a creature goes from rare to common, and you watch that happen, you get engaged with its sort of fight to survive. And when you see a creature go from extinct to rare to common, I think people are just going to be cheering it on the whole way.
All right, mainly what I think we learned there is that I personally trust older men with accents to teach me about dinosaurs and extinct animals. The young guy was like, yeah. All right. Okay, so before we get to some of the science and this stuff, Desi, I'm going to start with you here. If we can even do this, is this a good idea? I was expecting Jeff Goldblum to be in there and just warning us like in Jurassic Park, nothing good can come out of this.
Yeah, what could possibly go wrong?
What could possibly?
I know, we have seen this movie before, and it didn't end well, at least for Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
I think that they bring up many good points. The idea that humanity, because of our spread across the earth and our impact on habitats and resources and our own extraction of species just for our own use around the world, I think that does show that we have made the highest pressure on species extinction. We are the reason that there is a huge amount of extinction going on right now. And the idea that we can play God to bring these back is, I think, a distraction. Personally, my own personal opinion is that it is a distraction from conservation, because we won't be able to bring back the full species as is. And we can get to more on the science in a moment, but we wouldn't be bringing back that exact species. The environment that we have now is different from when those species existed. So right now, we're just sort of, laying waste to the earth and laying waste to these species and then trying to bring them back without actually doing the hard work of not doing the stuff that's killing them off in the first place.
Yeah.
That's the hard part.
Malcolm, is there any chance that something like this ends well? I mean, have we all just seen too many movies about this kind of stuff and too much sci-fi where it's like this goes horrifically awry and a dinosaur ends up parading through Los Angeles? Well, that may not be the worst thing in the world, but
there's like a 75% chance of that happening. Tops. Well, I mean, I think it's interesting I did some research. We all, I think, read a little bit more about this than we knew beforehand. And one of the stories was about the Iberian ibex. I don't know if you read about this, but it's in Europe, this antelope-like creature that they are goat or something. No, it's a goat, I guess, like a goat. They created it, they cloned it, and they had like hundreds of eggs to make this one, and this one was born, and it had an extra lung, and it was pathetic and horrible, and died within 10 minutes in the arms of the researcher. And it sounded like this horrible, horrible story. And I thought, yeah, let's do some more of that. It sounds great. Well, I mean, what Desi's saying, I mean, the question is whether you can do this and also focus on conservation and try to restore the Earth. I mean, we are destroying the Earth and destroying the habitat for ourselves, and we're going to focus on bringing back the saber-toothed tiger. I mean, that's rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic, or putting out new deck chairs, maybe. Right. And the question is whether it's a zero-sum game, and I don't think it is necessarily, but the reality is that we are trying to reintroduce these animals or potentially reintroduce these animals into an environment where the reason that they are no longer here is us. And what we need to do, if we really want to save these creatures, is to remove the factor that is destroying the environment, that is killing off all these animals, which is us. As long as we're still here, it's going to be tough for them to survive, even if we can do it.
Right. Brett, help me take the other side on this for a second. It seems to me that scientific progress is what humanity is all about. And if we can do this, we almost have a right, and it's almost incumbent upon us to do this. So crazy talk or not?
Probably crazy talk. There's definitely two categories of extinct animals. There's the ones that we killed because we're terrible as people. And I picture the whole cloning of endangered animals discussion will lead to a scene where some guy is like in a tractor and he's tearing down a forest. Someone's like, that was the last, diamond spangled sparrow you killed. And he's like, just put it in an ice box and we'll bring it back to life, Yeah. And the other ones are like the saber-toothed tiger and the woolly mammoth. The most frustrating thing about this to me is that those ones are, they had their shot, and they died, but unfortunately those are the coolest ones that I want back.
Absolutely, yeah.
And the question is like, are we playing God? We were playing God when we killed them off. We are now playing ungod.
No, we were playing the Old Testament God when we killed them off by destroying them. Now we're like, Jesus is here. Come on, water into wine. Everybody's friendly.
I don't know if you guys are implying that dinosaurs and humans live together. I don't think that's what you're saying.
Maybe.
But so I don't think it had anything to do with humans.
But humans and mammoths did exist together. I mean, mammoths only went extinct like 4,000 years ago or something.
I love how they planned to bring the mammoth back, which is to use an African elephant as a surrogate.
Yeah.
Now imagine being that African elephant and you give birth and you look down and there's a mammoth. You're, what the hell came out of my body?
Yeah, well, what about the dead elephant who goes over to the mom elephant and is like, what the fuck is this?
Where were you 9 months ago? How long does it take an elephant to get?
18 months. Sesame Street.
Did
you have a night with
22 months? Yeah, that's right.
All right, so if we can
Star Chaser.
If we can remove all of our, clearly we have some issues as humans, or at least the four of us do. If we can remove that we are going to wreck this whole thing, and we could get them to an island, and we can get all the right vegetation and all that stuff, would you guys be okay with that? If it could truly exist in a vacuum?
Well, we wouldn't actually be creating those species. We should, point out that with the science that we're talking about here, we're talking about taking the nuclei, if they can find existing nuclei, from these extinct species and inserting them into an egg of a surrogate or a close relative species.
Right.
So whatever comes out of that, it would take many generations to develop what might even be close to the full genome of these extinct species. So we're actually talking about creating new novel species, essentially. This is a very close kind of species, but not the exact thing. These are kind of like, they're basically clones. So then we have other issues, like you say, like can we create an island where they will have the exact same habitat that they had at the same time? Would they have the mutual species that come along with it? Like we all have gut microbes and other bacteria that also help us survive as organisms. Would we be able to recreate those as well? Is it even right to bring in a species when there won't be any others of them?
Right.
You don't have a population, as mentioned in the video. You only have one, maybe you make two, but you're not going to have the genetic diversity to ensure that population can continue. So I think it's a great idea as far as understanding the genome and understanding genetics and how that can further help us to identify ways to protect the species that we have. But otherwise, I don't think it's really a good idea. I think it takes away the resources that we need for conservation.
Right. Don't you guys think, though, that the playing God part of this seems a little like a hollow argument against it? Because humans aren't supposed to fly. We jump in planes. I mean, everything we do scientifically, if you were to say play God, well, that means you should get a disease and just die. I mean, everything we do is against that notion, but for some reason it does have a little weight here, I think.
Well, I think that the goal here is to do this. The scientists want to do it. It's neat, it's cool, and I think collectively we feel guilty. Like you read about, you hear about the Tasmanian tiger, the last one died in 1935 or whatever, and you're like, oh, we're so terrible, humans are so terrible. The passenger pigeons, there used to be, the passenger pigeons used to fly for flocks of millions of them, darkening the skies for days and days in the Midwest as they flew overhead, and now we just killed them all. Well, we think we did it, and we feel guilty about it, but I didn't do it personally, so I don't really, maybe Brett, I don't know if you were involved,
I did it, because nothing sounds worse than just like, oh, God, I wish I could see the sky, were it not for these billions of pigeons. Oh, poop.
But the thing is, we do it now. Don't we do it now?
We absolutely play God, and we want to do this. It's a neat thing to do. We feel guilty about it. We'd like to do it, and so we look for reasons why we should do it. And I don't think the reasons that they talk about doing it are really that legitimate. When Desi's point is right, that we have a lot more important things to focus on. But I think it's going to happen no matter what. There's no way it's going to be stopped, because somebody somewhere is going to want to do it. I was thinking about this, like, even if we banned it in the United States for some reason, internationally people will do it. There will be some university somewhere that wants the prestige associated with it, so they'll fund it, and it's going to happen.
There will be some corporation somewhere that wants to own
that
genome, that wants to, recreate this particular animal or plant, because they can then use it to create some medicine that they can make billions of dollars off of. So there are a lot of unintended consequences that can come out of it.
Couple questions.
Yes.
How the hell did the carrier pigeon get on the list with the woolly mammoth and the saber-toothed tiger?
It's good PR.
Just come on.
Passenger pigeon or the carrier pigeon?
Passenger pigeon. Oh yeah, total big difference. Anyone who says this is not a vanity project is fooling themselves. This is absolutely vain, and it's also that we can recreate these extinct species, so we can see them for a second and go, awesome, woolly mammoth, let's get lunch.
And the thing is, will it look better than CGI? Jurassic Park 4 is coming out. Those things are going to look pretty realistic. You know what I mean? And we're going to create one that has a limp and, as you said, has a bad lung, needs to be carried around. It's like...
Yeah, that's what it's going to be, and we're going to have to deal with that.
Well, I think there are potentially benefits that we don't know. And they talk about, like, if we restore these ecosystems and restore passenger pigeons to the Midwest, and as the forests come back, it's possible. Increase the genetic diversity around the world, even if they are sort of new species. And plus, maybe we get to hunt Neanderthals. That would be fun. Right? Like traditional man did. But that's the one that I found most intriguing, is the idea that we could actually bring back Neanderthals, and the question being, who's going to gestate? The first.
Get me out of here!
It's going to be a hell of a. This all leads to a reality show, right? Yeah. The Neanderthals living next on Wall Street or something.
But no, I bet Octomom is already attached to the first reality show to produce a Neanderthal offspring, and then subsequent. Talk about your object of, interest as a society, like watching the Neanderthal grow up. That would be something.
Oh my God. Okay, well, let's just stop for a second.
Calm us down here.
Let's just remember that,
and then we hunt it.
That there are issues with bringing back a Neanderthal, which first of all, the scientist who, the big media went around that said he was looking for an adventurous woman to be a surrogate mom for Neanderthal. He said that was absolutely not what he was saying. He was just positing if you wanted to do this, then you would need an adventurous woman to do that. And he says absolutely not. It shouldn't be done because, these are human ancestors, and therefore you have ethical considerations about whether it is right to bring a human ancestor into the world in which it would be the only one, into a society that it is not prepared in order to survive in, and a sentient being of sort that, that just has wrong written all over it. So you can't go hunt them.
What are you going to do with them? But it is interesting. Like, you could be birthing your own great
And then you want to go kill them.
Well, I mean,
well, you'd have your reasons at that point.
Give it sticks.
Catch and release. What about catch and release?
Catch and release. Oh, we got you again, Neanderthal.
All right, so
he's just wearing like a big hat trying to blend in, but just his enormous pronounced brow is poking out the bottom of his fedora.
Didn't ABC try to do a sitcom about this when they took the cavemen?
Yeah.
Remember the cavemen from the Geico commercial? They had a sitcom for like 2 episodes.
Yeah,
It was canceled,
2 episodes is about as long.
This doesn't bode
The point
well.
of this whole conversation is about trying things again.
There you
See if
go.
we can do it better the second time.
Yes.
So my final question on this is, this seems to me like a really cool divergence in the scientific community, because it seems like we're going to have half the people working on this kind of stuff and going back and bringing back extinct species, and the other half doing what I like a little bit more, which is working on the robots that ultimately are going to be our leaders. Which side of that do you guys fall on? Are you more into the bringing back the dinosaurs or kowtowing to the robots?
I think I speak for the entire panel when I say robot dinosaurs.
I think you guys even have anything to add then?
Nope.
Robot dinosaurs?
Bring him on. Yeah, I'm with him.
With him, that's my.
I'm with my Neanderthal friend over here.
All right, great. We're going to splice a little DNA, and we'll be back in just a sec. Hey, welcome back to The Point. I'm Dave Rubin, and now we're going to talk about those crazy kooks over at the GOP. They lost one of their favorites, one of our favorites, and as a comedian, one of my really, truly personal favorites. Michele Bachmann announced she's retiring, and she gave us this snappy video to tell us.
My good friends, after a great deal of thought and deliberation, I have decided next year I will not seek a 5th congressional term to represent the wonderful people of the 6th District of Minnesota. After serious consideration, I am confident that this is the right decision. Be assured, my decision was not in any way influenced by any concerns about my being reelected to Congress. I've always in the past defeated candidates who are capable, qualified, and well-funded. And I have every confidence that if I ran, I would again defeat the individual who I defeated last year. And rest assured, this decision was not impacted in any way by the recent inquiries into the activities of my former presidential campaign or my former presidential staff.
Yeah, right.
That's what we call Vaseline on the lens right there. That's a little trick they use to make you look sharp. That was the foggiest, overly tanned, stiff, stilted, awkward thing I've ever seen in my life. All right.
And was she hot?
Exactly.
Can I get 2 of those, please?
So, all right, she is stepping down. Of course, Michele Bachmann's a Tea Party favorite, so they're losing her. They lost Alan West, a couple of these other guys, which leads us to wonder, what is the future of the GOP, and is that far-right fringe that we all talk about, is it on its way out? And Malcolm, that's my question to you. Is there a chance that the far right of this may be coming back to the center a little bit?
No, but one thing I feel bad that Michele Bachmann is leaving when she finally seemed to figure out which camera to look into. Because she's had trouble with that in the past. It took her 5 terms in Congress, and she finally got that, and now she's leaving.
She accomplished what she went there for,
Yeah.
to learn how to go into the camera.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that this is more about the 2 things that she mentioned. Whenever you hear a Republican out there saying this is not about X and it's not about Y, you're like, oh, I guess it's about X and Y, because she clearly is afraid she was going to lose, and there's a cloud hanging over her. So I don't think this necessarily speaks much about the GOP in general, though I think a lot of people in the party are glad to see her go. People like Karl Rove are clearly, I don't, as an indicator for the party in general, I think this just has to do with her and her personal situation, and they have a solid bullpen of crazy people, coming up the rear, and ready to replace her.
Coming
Although
up
she
the
does,
rear, eh?
she has. Well,
Could you explain that phrase, please?
we'll talk about her husband in a minute, but no, I think she's just but she is a unique and unusual person. We are sorry to see her go because she does provide. I mean, her fans love her, and we on the left love her. Although she is a dangerous person.
Her main rival, the one who almost beat her in the last election, once he found out that she was no longer going to seek election, he dropped out. He's like, mission accomplished, I'm done. So what you get is a replacement. You had like a firebrand, and now you just get someone you'll never hear about who votes the same way.
But remember, she's not gone yet. I mean, we still get her till January 2015. So there's a good 18 months left of Michele Bachmann fun for everybody to still have. But I don't think that it means that that they're not going to provide plenty of fodder for comedians anyway. There's still a lot of crazy in that bullpen that as Malcolm said.
Well, dare I play the devil's advocate here for a moment, but do we owe Michele Bachmann some credit? Because as a woman, she got up during those GOP primaries and dealt with all of those lunatics, but they all basically were old white men, except for Herman Cain, who had his own set of issues, I suppose. So just as a woman, do you think she provides anything good for the feminist narrative or anything like that? Even if you completely disagree with her politics, she did do something, right?
Well, yeah, you could say that. I would congratulate her on stepping up to run for office, stepping up to try to be part of the governing of the country. I absolutely disagree with pretty much everything she's ever said in her entire life, except and. But and I'm quitting. I like that. But as far as her being out there as an example to other women to say, hey, look, if she can run and she can make it, then more qualified women could also consider that something that would be a viable option for them as well. So for that, you're right. I think that's something that she should be congratulated for and supported for stepping up.
Yeah, Brett, what do you think the net gain or loss recently for the Tea Party is? Because obviously this is a loss to them in a certain respect. This IRS thing seems to be a gain for them because it's going right to their base, into their wheelhouse. So are things actually looking good for them? Is that possible?
I just don't think that at any point a radical faction can really lose or gain that much, because it's always going to be there. Someone's going to step up to kind of fill in the gap. And right now, the IRS thing is something that a lot of people can identify with and pile onto outside of whether they're a Tea Party person, just because I don't think the IRS is the most well-liked institution in general. So I think that's a thing. And there are going to be people that pile on anyway. I think that her leaving, it's how much can one person coming or going push the needle in Congress? Because what's going to happen, the only time that any change happens in Congress is when there's an open seat, yes, but in this place, in most times when there's an open seat these days, the area has been so gerrymandered that it's going to ensure that the same party stays in power. And the only way you get like someone from another party to come in is when they're going to bridge the line and still vote along the lines of whoever is in that area anyway. So you get someone who's going to be, a Democrat in name only, if at all. But the only reason that you could have gotten a Democrat before is if you had someone who was that polarizing.
Yeah, Malcolm, you think it's a little presumptuous of us, maybe as people on the progressive side of things, to sit here and say, well, Michele Bachmann's going, it's all good. Like, what if you were on the other side of this? What would you be thinking right now?
Well, I think that the dynamic within the Republican Party remains the same. And what Brett was talking about with the IRS scandal is right on, which is that the only sort of cohesive factor within the Republican Party right now is their hatred of Barack Obama and trying to stop him. And so the scandals, the IRS scandal, the AP, more in the IRS, so they're focusing on that more, is something they can all rally around and they can all focus on because they don't have agreement on what we do about immigration, for example, or any number of other issues. They fight among themselves and they can't legislate. They have no legislative drive now that is with any focus. So they can just latch on to the next scandal, whatever the scandal is, and that's something they can all agree on, that we hate Obama. But that's not
policy.
That's not policy.
And that
exactly.
doesn't help the country.
But it also I think it doesn't do them any favors, because they're crying wolf so much that the rest of the country and the media is even starting to be like, because they were saying Benghazi was like the worst thing that ever happened. It was worse than 9/11 and Pearl Harbor and the Civil War 1,000 times combined. And now they're like, oh, Benghazi, what was that about? Okay, we're too busy with the IRS now. So maybe the public is getting a sense of, maybe you don't actually care that much about these scandals, but that you're just actually trying to hurt Obama. That's the sense I'm getting. What do you think? You think maybe it's just about getting to Obama?
I don't know if the public is catching on yet, because remember, it seemed like the public was going to catch on after the 2008 election, and then suddenly, boom, 2010, you put enough money and enough agitation from Tea Partiers into the campaign, then you get Republicans surging back into force in 2010. So what I see it as being a problem, though, is that with a determined, crazy faction that sort of owns the Republican Party right now, we're not able to get anything done. So in order to get anything done in Congress, Democrats have to move further to the right to find more things that they can get a couple of Republicans to agree on. So that means that the crazy time is actually doing a really great job of pulling the country in the direction that the crazies want to go in anyway.
Yeah, it's just so hard to say. I mean, as much as you want to say that this Michele Bachmann resigning or any individual instance is the death knell of the Republican Party, you just can't say that when they have the House. Yeah. You just can't. Right. You can't say that Democrats are winning when they don't have the entire government.
Yeah.
I mean, look at healthcare reform. Healthcare reform passed, but it passed with pretty much all Republican ideas, what were originally Republican ideas. Banking reform, passed with Republicans watering it down, and now kind of preventing it from being implemented at all.
Yeah. Well, notice I did not bring up Marcus Bachmann in this whole discussion because I was waiting to use him for the segue into this story about two gay teens in New York were voted the cutest couple in their high school. And I assume Marcus probably watched this video once or twice, so why don't we take a look?
High school superlatives are monumental, like the Cutest Couple Award at Carmel High School in Carmel, New York. This year, the award went to Dylan Meehan and Brad Taylor, a same-sex couple whose picture has since gone viral. Carmel senior Chelsea Blaney posted the picture on Tumblr and wrote, "Two of my best friends, one cutest couple of our senior class. First time in my school history a same-sex couple has been able to run for this category, not to mention winning it. So proud of them and my school." You can put them facts on file because the principal confirmed it. As for the couple themselves, Brad and Dylan spoke to the HuffPost and said, "This whole thing has been a bit surreal for us because we have been raised to believe that love is love. We never realized that our happiness and openness would inspire so many individuals. The support we have received from our family, friends, and even strangers has led us to believe that our affection for each other is normal." That was after their friend's post on Tumblr had received over 100,000 notes in just 3 days.
All right, that seems pretty innocuous and pretty good if you ask me. We need things like this to happen in order for progress to progress. Brett, do you agree with me, or is this the liberal gay agenda pushing their views on... Go.
I just don't think that couple was that cute. I mean, come on, that one dude's hair is like so ridiculous. I mean, I'm sure there's another same-sex couple that's like slightly cuter than that.
Commence with hating on him right away.
Yeah, I think what happens is that the straight couples split the vote, and so it's just there's an opening, and I think that's great. I mean, that's electoral politics.
First, you came for our marriages. Now you come for our yearbook superlatives.
What's next?
Dave. Can't we have anything anymore?
We wouldn't have that in our high school. Our high school was like anything remote. I went to a Catholic high school, so it's not, I mean, there were gay people there and no one really gave them any trouble because we were in Los Angeles. But like, there was nothing about like, you guys are in a relationship at all. You can't be in the yearbook. No hand holding, none of that stuff. So I think just having having a cutest couple superlative, I think that's fantastic.
That's just good in itself.
I mean, it shows equal opportunity that you were already to the point where you're hating on him for not being cute enough. Therefore, they have achieved equality. Nobody really cares. And I think that's fabulous.
The most superficial I can.
Yeah, and actually, isn't that what true equality is? Not being treated like a preferential group. You know, last week there was the instance in the NBA where Roy Hibbert, after the basketball game, he said "no homo" as a very passing comment, and everyone kept saying, "Well, it's a gay slur. It's a gay slur." I mean, it's not really a slur. It was a little side thing. So if you want to be treated equally, you should be able to be made fun of the same way as everyone else, right?
It shows that, we've progressed so fast on this issue, which is amazing and wonderful and really, really heartwarming to know that, we can still change our ways in a way that's so fast and so quick that, this is falling, this one more barrier falling to the wayside. I'm wondering, what other barriers are there that we have not yet to have fall to the wayside with this? Because I think most generations of Americans, at least everybody under the age of, say, 65, is all in favor of this.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's probably pushing it because 65 is maybe a little old. It's not quite
50.
the Fox News demographic, but I think it is instructive that the kids themselves were like, "Why is this a big deal?"
Yeah.
And yet all the people on the internet, which is probably people a little older, responding, who are saying this is a big deal. But to them, that they're saying it's not a big deal is indicative that we are making that kind of progress, that it surprised them that there would be that anybody would make note of this. And I think the Hibbert situation is the opposite extreme from that, which is that we're not going to let you make these kind of slurs. Whereas, I mean, like, 10, 15, 20 years ago, somebody's saying,
5 years ago.
Well, actually, LeBron James said no homo in an interview 2 years ago, and it went by. So things are changing in that regard. But I want to talk about something that Desi brought up, which is, do you think it's possible that things are actually changing too fast, and that could cause a backlash? Maybe with the conservative Christian side of things.
Right. I mean, the thing is that yes, there's going to be a backlash, but I feel that if you have, because people are just holding tight to this hatred, and that's just something that's going to happen, and you're going to pull it up, and you're going to find that people are still really want those biases and those bad behaviors. But I mean, their position is one of hate, which is indefensible. So what can they say? I mean, yes, you need to. The best thing you can do is ask them why they have that position and let them talk.
Yeah.
But I think the backlash is inevitable, no matter how slowly it goes. Because I think it goes to what we were talking about in the last segment with the people the Republicans and the older Fox News viewers, who are angry about changes that are happening in this country. And seeing one of the things, news stories this past week was a gay man who was killed in Manhattan outside of his apartment, I think, and that, I mean, it's a horrible story, but it's not surprising that kind of anger at the fact that this country is changing, and it's changing in ways these people don't like, that people who are gay and out and open about it are going to be a very public depiction of that, or a representation of that, and are going to be the focus of that kind of anger. And I mean, it's horrible and lamentable, but I don't see as how, I mean, it seems like it's inevitable.
The other option is to not change. And I don't like that option so much.
Do you guys think we always just need the other? We just need someone to hate, and we just kind of shift this around? Actually, it was making me think, to go back to the first segment that we did, maybe we bring the Neanderthals back and we just all hate on them, and what are they going to do? Get a political action committee? Come on.
Let's just hate on kittens or something. Pick a non-human that exists.
I've had it with these freaking
stupid
kittens.
No. Why are you licking yourself? That's disgusting. Hairballs?
You bring back the Neanderthals, and they would become politically aware and be like, wow, those Tea Partiers are crazy.
Yeah. And plus, they were a bunch of jack dudes that all hung out together. There was probably some gay stuff going on.
That's why they died out.
Whoa.
And you also have people who want to hunt them.
It's all there. It's all there.
The thing was, as much as people didn't want to, they did interbreed with those Neanderthals, and there's Neanderthal DNA in all of us.
Yeah. Yes. All right, so net gain here clearly seems to be on the side of the gain. Boy Scouts, let's talk about that real quick, just bring that into this. They did lift the ban on the Scouts, but once you're 18, then you are banned again, or you cannot be a Scout leader. I mean, this is craziness. Literally, one day you're good to go, birthday, you're out. Do we all just think this is, is this just half-assed nonsense?
Implication. There is a very strong implication that gay people are child molesters.
Yeah.
That is what they're saying.
No.
That's what they're saying. Because if you want to ban, I mean, their impetus or their motivation behind this is to make it so that if you have a gay Scout leader, he might try to molest the children. No, gay people don't molest children. Child molesters molest children, and plenty of them are married and have female partners. But the thing is, you're basically saying that if we let gay people hang around these children, they're going to try to have sex with them.
So do you guys see this then as a victory at all? Because I know GLAAD, for example, was touting this as a huge victory that they got the Boy Scouts to come around. But I agree with what you're saying. They're just shifting this slightly, and nothing really has changed.
I think it's just a half-ass measure. I think GLAAD, I understand why they would come out and praise this as progress, because it is progress. At least for those kids, they won't have that necessarily be something that is criticizing.
But don't they have something that's worse in a way? Like you're going to grow up into this horrible thing that we're going to have to actually see.
It's totally intellectually dishonest. It's completely illogical, and it's ridiculous. And I don't think any person who can think their way through this will see anything otherwise. The idea that once you go from 17 years and 364 days, now boom, you are unacceptable. I think everyone can sort of see the illogic of that.
No. Everyone knows that if you're gay as a child on your 18th birthday, you turn into a predator. Everybody knows that.
It's like when the Hulk gets mad.
I'm going to disagree a little bit and just give the Boy Scouts a pass, because this was not like the group coming down from on high with this decision. It was a vote, and votes often you don't get exactly what you want. But this is a step in the right direction. It's inevitable now that this is not going to be the way it remains. This is a half measure, yes, but there's no putting the gay genie back in that bottle. These kids are going to grow up, the society's going to get older, the people who voted against it are going to die off, and eventually the Boy Scouts are going to be like everybody else. And the state of California is threatening to take away their tax-exempt status, which is going to make them really think twice about it. So, I mean, as much as I don't agree with it, I have boys, they're not Boy Scouts because of this, or because of the Boy Scouts policy, and they won't be until they allow gay scout leaders. But I think that it's just, the ones who are defending it and saying, well, we're going to draw the line here. Yeah, we're going to do this, but we're not going to allow. That's not going to hold.
It's just, I don't, the intellectually dishonest, I wonder if they think they just did this amazing thing. Like, look at it, definitely not the scout leaders. I mean, we all know why. But we're letting the kids be gay. And they think they're doing this great thing. And it's like a child. It's like, your heart is in the right place. Now let me explain why the other half of your argument is really stupid.
Yeah, but can we have any pity for these guys? Because it probably is a bunch of closeted, warped guys who are voting on the same thing that they are. Is there any pity? Because the world did screw them up, when things were very different when they were growing up. So is there any room for pity there, you
that
think?
Might be like, that's a lot to assume that there are a lot of closeted people. Maybe they're just like a mix of that and someone who's just really stuck in the past and has these assumptions and was never proven otherwise because they were insulated because there were no gay people allowed into the Boy Scouts and that's their main social group, so it just propagates over generations. But it's still bad and we should still try to change it. And maybe we should give them a merit.
I think it's been proven that 100% of the elders and the leaders of the Boy Scouts of America are all closeted gay pedophiles themselves. I think that's fact.
And now to earn your final merit badge.
Oh God!
And on that note, I would like to say that Malcolm not only speaks a good game, but he also fills in for the gay Scoutmasters here at our local California chapter of the Boy Scouts. So there you go.
When Marcus Bachmann can't make it.
Exactly. All right, we're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back. Hey, welcome back to The Point. Let's talk about candy. I love candy. I just downed 3 Reese's Pieces before we started this operation. But you may not know what's in your candy. Let's take a look.
So, what is going to kill you this week? Candy. That's right, candy. It is not, as it turns out, so dandy. The candy in question is nothing as mundane as, say, Skittles, although I'm sure eating tons and tons of Skittles will probably eventually kill you. No, these candies are tainted with lead, so it's kind of like a candy bullet. Stores like Whole Foods, Trader Joe's, and Target are being sued by the state of California for selling ginger and plum candies that seem to have lead in them. Laboratory tests found trace amounts of lead in these candies, which goes against a California proposition requiring you to label it when there is lead in them. So it's fine as long as you label it. The California Attorney General's office has not disclosed the amount of lead that they found in these candies, which means there's probably not that much, right? So we're fine. Are we fine? We are not going to make it.
All right, I think this story is so indicative of so many things going on in the country right now. There's lead in our candy. Really? Desi,
Oh, come on.
how much lead is in your system right now from eating ginger snaps from Trader Joe's?
Well, that's a good question. But hey, they got some ginger in their lead candy.
Ginger's
They
good.
can do better.
Ginger is good for you.
That is true. It is good for you. Lead, however, is not. It's a neurotoxin, and it's really bad, especially for kids and developing brains. So it is actually quite important that we root out all of these problems. The only problem that we have with that, though, is that our industrialized, globalized food system is not set up for inspections or enforcement or making sure that these kinds of ingredients don't make it into candy that people should not be eating.
Yeah, why is it that by labeling it, this somehow seems better? It's like mercury in tuna. A pregnant woman's not even supposed to eat any tuna because of mercury, and yet we know it, so it somehow seems a little more okay. Do you think it's okay? They put lead on there, so now it's up to you.
Oh, well, I do like the idea that if you put the notion that you put the ingredients on something that the informed American consumer will make better consumer decisions, which is probably not really true.
I like it because now I know where to get my lead.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because
where
if I'm
else are you
looking
getting
for,
lead?
yeah, otherwise I have to you have to read a bunch of news reports to find out what's tainted. This way I know it's lead at Trader Joe's and I just buy it and take it home.
But do you think? I mean,
Whatever
that's the
happened to
question,
just chewing pencils? Isn't that the way you guys got lead as a kid?
Do you think people really care about what they eat, though? I mean, if there's one thing I think we know about Americans is that we really fundamentally do not give a shit about what we eat, and we will eat almost anything and be almost sort of proud of it. There's like a bizarre, perverse sort of pride in eating. Really, like people will brag about eating. Like, oh, I had a bacon cheeseburger for lunch, and then I some ring dings, and I downed it with a Coke, with cherry Coke, 77-ounce cherry Coke.
I mean, there's a restaurant called the Heart Attack Grill.
Yeah.
And people have heart attacks there.
But you guys are talking about the difference between men and women on this, I think. I don't think there's a single mom anywhere who would say, I don't care about what my kids eat. And, oh, that's great. I'm going to take my kids to the Heart Attack Grill. I think that's something that men do. Yeah.
Do you see the food that people buy?
I see the food that people
for their
buy.
children?
But I don't think that moms would actually say, yeah, the lead is great and we don't care. I think that a lot of it has to do with education, misinformation, disinformation, and lack of availability of healthier choices and affordability of
Is
healthier
this what's
choices.
making our kids so heavy? Is they're eating all this lead?
Lead.
There's lead and they're allowed.
You don't
What's the
look fat,
calories?
but you weigh 600 pounds. I just think that there's this assumption that food is better for us now, and I don't know if that's completely well-founded. Yes, back in like the 50s, there was an uptick in processing foods and everything, but you would just go buy one of the 7 kinds of bread that there were, as opposed to the 700 kinds of bread, and just I look back on the processed cheese foods that I ate as a child, and I want to assume that now it is better and healthier, but I just don't know if it is because there's a lack of transparency in the food preparation
The
process.
Cheese Whiz people are the worst. You can't get any information out of them.
Yeah, you just ask and
Just
ask.
on hold for hours and hours.
Well, and then you have people, I think, that have a misplaced belief, a misplaced respect for what our food system, our current food system, especially the federal inspection food system, is giving them. They believe that, oh, if the FDA says it's okay, well, they must have tested it and looked at all this stuff, so it must be fine. They wouldn't offer it for sale if it wasn't okay.
Or they think the market, if they're a sort of libertarian bent, they think the market will determine, they wouldn't be selling something that's bad for us because it would be bad for their bottom line, in theory.
I'm in a Target right now. I shouldn't be able to buy anything that will kill me.
Right, for whatever reason.
And that's misplaced.
Right. So in this is a perfect example of that, actually, because I view, especially Whole Foods, but also Trader Joe's, as somehow the healthier alternative to the regular supermarket. So is it that much more shocking that this stuff is going Whole Foods? It's not whole lead foods.
Yeah. It's you're assuming because it's Trader Joe's, but the problem with Trader Joe's is like they do some great wholesaling and some fantastic deal making with specific brands that gives like these preposterously low prices compared to your Ralph's or your Vons or Pavilions or Safeway. So that's
And you're saying there's something nefarious behind that,
I'm
aren't
just
you?
saying it's really, really cheap. And whenever I buy something that's really, really cheap, I feel like there's something wrong with it. I'm going to buy it because I only have a certain amount of money, but I just assume that it's not that good for me. So you go to Whole Foods, and conversely, you assume that it's really, really good for you. And that is I think the most like these high-end retail chains for food. Whole Foods, it just implies that it's 6 steps of these cows were born on a cloud somewhere and were given ambrosia
Stroked constantly and
told positive things.
We'll coax that milk right out of you.
Yeah.
Do you guys think that some of this just comes, though, with living a modern life? I mean, if you think about it, in the 50s we had asbestos in locker rooms, and that just every we thought smoking was okay and all kinds of stuff. That this is just part of it. Like now they'll look back and they go, oh yeah, they used to eat lead in 2013. Like we're never going to really get out of this because of the socioeconomic things you're talking about and just the ease of eating cheaper things that are less healthy. And all
Well, there is a way out of it. We're already trying to make those changes as, like, for example, the internet has made all of this information far more available to everybody than was ever possible before. So now that people are understanding more, they're signing petitions, they're trying to get ballot propositions for, say, labeling for genetically modified ingredients, that people are getting more information now and sort of fighting back against this influx of lobbying money that has come from the manufacturers who have made sure that the state and local and federal regulations are all in their favor. But the people are starting to fight back. So I don't think we have to settle for this and say, well, it's just the way it is. There's nothing we can do about it. Throw up our hands. I think we can actually make a difference. It's showing up already across the country as people are making a difference.
I have a little bit of a conspiracy theory here, and I don't want to. But before we get to the next segment, Is anybody giving any thought to the idea that maybe the Chinese are intentionally putting lead in our food?
I don't think so, because they want to get their debt paid back, so they can't kill us. Is that what you're saying?
Because they can't defeat us militarily, so they can put
us
lead in our
stupid.
food,
Make us dumb.
and they can use our greatest weakness against us is our urge to snack, and we can't stop. And then it turns into an idiocracy, and they just roll over us.
Snacks of mass destruction?
Exactly. I think it's airtight.
Yeah, well, it would be silly of us not to mention the whole Taco Bell situation quickly to wrap this thing up. You guys probably saw the picture of the Taco Bell worker licking what seemed to be a gross of taco shells. It was gross, and I think it might have been a gross. And again, this is the type of stuff we put in our bodies. God only knows what's going on at all these fast food places. If you're going to pay people low wages, they're going to do crazy things. Brett.
First of all, they've got to, everyone's wanted to do that, I'm sure. Secondly, of all the stuff in my Taco Bell Supreme, I don't think that man's saliva is the worst thing for me.
I would just echo that.
Yeah.
You know, the rat feces, the worm hairs, whatever's in there.
Disclosure
Your taco your way.
Pretty sure we just lost our Taco Bell sponsorship.
But I think this is that you make a good point about the low wages and people working in the fast food industry and restaurant. I mean, in general, do you think you would eat in restaurants if you knew exactly what was going on? Not just fast food, but any kind of restaurant, pretty much. If you really got I think that we probably would eat it anyway, based on what we were saying earlier. But it would still make you squeamish. And but I think that the fact that we pay these people so little and the growing income inequality, but couple that with the prevalence of smartphones and people who want to get back at their disgruntled employees, they're going to take photos and post them on the web, and we're going to see more and more what's going on behind the scenes at the places that feed us.
And that's a good thing. I think that's a good thing.
To bring it all back, I think every time you want to add another layer, and this is neither good nor bad, but what I think are the facts is every time you add another layer of oversight, and every time in order to make sure that this food is better prepared and everything, and every time you propose the way to get people to stop licking taco shells is to pay them more, you're going to raise the price of what's supposed to be the thing that anyone can afford. And yes, maybe a bump from a 98-cent taco to a 99-cent taco is imperceptible, but that's the direction they'll go to, and it's just a crazy cycle that's hard to keep tabs on that might just raise the prices of things to where people can't really afford them.
Well, either that or it's a race to the bottom.
Right, for 2 extra cents, would you want a lickless taco? Speaking of things you shouldn't be licking, Michael Douglas, it has come out. Yeah, you saw that coming. Apparently, he got throat cancer through the HPV virus by performing cunnilingus. That's going down on a chick, for those of you that are, There was a lot of jokes we could have done here. Okay, so this is becoming, everyone's talking about it, everyone's very excited. It most likely is Catherine Zeta-Jones' vagina, I think, and
we have video.
And we have video. Let's just go to the video.
Actor Michael Douglas has said his throat cancer was caused by performing oral sex on women. In an interview with British newspaper The Guardian, the Beyond the Candelabra star said at first he thought the disease was brought on by his years of smoking and drinking. But the 68-year-old, who's married to Catherine Zeta-Jones, has since revealed that the particular strain he had suffered with was caused by human papillomavirus, a sexually transmitted disease. When asked if he regretted smoking and drinking in the past, Michael said no, because this particular cancer is caused by HPV, which actually comes about from cunnilingus.
There's something nice about hearing a foreigner say cunnilingus. All right, so it seems to me that this is very possibly that, Behind the Candelabra just came out where he played Liberace, and there was the gay sex scenes with Matt Damon. And was this his way of being like, yes, I go down on chicks? That was a acting scene, and I love pussy. Brett.
I don't think so. I think everyone knows that he gets tons of puh. He's with Catherine Zeta-Jones, and he's doing a great job. And yes, he romances her stone every now and then.
Zing.
Bada bing.
Full disclosure.
Desi.
Well, what I hated about that was when I read it, it was sort of kind of creepy. First of all, we should, I guess, point out that he said later through his publicist that he didn't really say HPV caused his cancer. And there's some science that relates to that. But what surprised me about it was kind of like a humble brag, you know?
Yeah.
This
Right.
idea of, yeah, it wasn't the smoking and the cancer, it's because I serviced the ladies.
Yeah, but do you
know?
think the timing has something to? I mean, the gay movie comes out and then a week later, it's I go down on chicks and that's how this happened.
No, I don't think so. But what I do like is that both Michael Douglas and the reporter, the British reporter, use the term cunnilingus, which is you just don't hear very often. Where does
that come from?
Yeah,
it sounds like Charles Mingus.
It reminds me of people who refer to sex as intercourse. You know, we had intercourse. It's like, ooh, that's hot. But the other thing I love is that Michael Douglas's publicist, like when he got hired, he probably thought, oh, it's a pretty good gig. Michael Douglas publicist. It's like probably didn't imagine he's going to be drafting press releases about Michael Douglas giving oral sex to Catherine Zeta-Jones. I feel sort of bad for him. But to your question, no, I don't. I think we give celebrities too much credit for planning these things out. I don't think he even knew that interview was being recorded potentially. Maybe he was humble bragging a little bit to the whoever was interviewing him, but I don't. You think he really wanted this? You think he's like, how much more of this is he going to have to do to make up for what he did to Catherine Zeta-Jones? For putting her on the
She is
spot.
the loser in this, isn't she? Really? Like,
so glad that everyone knows now that I have HPV,
Yeah.
and I ruined one of the largest, the throats of one of the largest, movie stars of the 1980s.
Killed my husband with my devious snatch. I mean,
It was
really.
actually a fatal attraction, a near fatal attraction.
all right, so if we can do it, if we can get the smirking out of this, which is going to be tough, is this good, actually? Him doing this, whether it was intentional or not, because it has opened a discussion about this, and this thing has been trending on Twitter for 3 days, and yes, 90% of it is jokes, but there is some discussion going on now about how this is transmitted.
Yeah, because, I mean, HPV for women is terrible. It is the worst thing because the guy, until now, there was no symptoms. Guys can have it their whole lives and it'll be fine, and they give it to women, but the women incubate cervical cancer. And so now there is a way for guys to measure that they could have a negative impact from it, and so maybe it'll start, motivating people to be more careful.
Yeah, by all means, if it encourages men to get tested, because it's mostly symptomless for men, or it has been, until Michael Douglas came out to say.
I don't think it was Michael Jackson going down.
Michael Douglas came out to say all of this stuff and sort of bring up the concept. I mean, I realize that people are like, oh no, now men will say, I'm never doing that again. I don't think that's going to happen, first of all. And, if it helps them to get tested and to be more aware of the statistics that that men are the ones that are the carriers of this. Men are the ones that are the transmitters of this. And 95% of Americans, I think, by the age of 25 have come into contact with the HPV virus, like 100 variants of it. So. Men should find out if they have it so that they can not necessarily be carrying around a cervical cancer bomb every time, if they're straight, if they have any kind of intercourse or relations or whatever the words are that we want to use with women.
Bumping and pumping is another way to talk about it.
It is sort of pathetic that this is how public gets informed about something like this, but this is who we are and this is what we do, and so it goes. If this is the way it's got to be, and if Catherine Zeta-Jones has to be made fun of for the rest of her life, long after the guy who was doing this is dead. Tough luck for her. Personally, I think maybe Amanda Bynes was trying to warn us about this when she tweeted about how she wanted Drake to murder her vagina. Maybe she's like, stop it before it kills again.
Yeah. Do you think is this odd that the running joke is that all straight men are going to use this so they don't have to go down on their wives anymore? Do straight guys not dig the cunnilingus?
I'm going to invest heavily in dental dams. I think that's where the future is. If men are looking for an excuse not to do it.
Are men not trying to do this kind of thing?
I just think of it in the same category as the Minotaur, like it exists in myth and fable, but nowhere else.
No more giving oral sex to Catherine Zeta-Jones for me.
Yeah, exactly.
There you go. Forget it.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. I think we all need to throw some water on our face, and we'll be right back. It's time for Off Their Feed. This is where we take some high-profile tweets of the week and we give our commentary. We're going to start with broadcasting legend, Mr. Larry King. He tweeted, "Whenever a prominent politician dies, everybody always talks about who's next. Why can't we reflect for a moment on the late Senator Frank Lautenberg?" A tweet is the briefest possible thing you could have done there, Larry.
I can't imagine why Larry King would be upset when people start talking about who's going to die next.
Is Larry afraid people are talking about him?
Yeah.
I think Larry killed Frank Lautenberg. That's just my tweet.
This is from our buddy John Fugelsang. I'm so glad HBO's Game of Thrones maintains the book's literary motif to fuck you for caring about these characters. You haven't seen it yet, have you?
I have not seen it, so mine is la 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 la.
Is Game of Thrones on over this weekend? I hadn't noticed.
Thank you, HBO Signature, for airing Love Actually after Game of Thrones. I needed that.
And I would say not the worst wedding I've ever been to. Conservative commentator Katie Pavlich said, while Occupy Oakland was burning their city and assaulting cops, the San Fernando Valley Patriots were making signs. Who did the government target?
It's actually whom did the government target?
Well, at bradblog.com, we did an investigation of this, and we know that the cops were the ones that instigated the violence and then lied about it. So I would respond to her to say the Tea Party wouldn't recognize government tyranny if it slapped him upside the head and shot him with tear gas.
That's exactly right. Scott Olson was a protester, a veteran at Occupy Oakland, and he was hit in the head, shot in the head by police with a tear gas canister, fractured his skull, and the Tea Party patriots who were, attacked by the IRS had to fill out some extra forms. So that is really a bummer. That's tyranny.
All right, MSNBC's Ari Melber tweeted, pot use is equal among black and white Americans, but police arrest blacks 4 times as often. I would say that's 420 reasons to legalize.
Hey, those private prisons aren't going to stock themselves.
I just like to imagine that cops are just like really bad at arresting white people. Like every time they try to arrest a white person, they like drop. It's like they're just bad at it.
Or it's worse than the 50-50 because the vast majority of the pot being smoked by black people is all being smoked by Snoop Dogg. So
there you go.
It's even worse.
I was at a party once that Snoop Dogg was at, and I looked over there on the other side of a pool, him and his entourage, and literally it looked like a fog machine was going on. It was amazing.
Comedy writer Matt Goldich tweeted, next time Justin Bieber goes to a basketball game, he would look less ridiculous if he just brought a baseball glove. I mean, which one of us hasn't worn a black leather garbage bag to a basketball game, really?
Oh, I would say leave the kid alone. It's no wonder child stars make it out of their teenage years alive based on the nitpicking that they get.
Is the suggestion just to wear a baseball glove and nothing else?
Ariana Huffington tweeted, the Iraq War, the gift that just keeps on giving, China is reaping the biggest benefits of Iraqi oil boom.
I would say that the defenders of the Iraq War said that we were not going in to take all of the Iraqi oil for ourselves. I'm sorry, I was wrong. You were right. It's for China.
I'm with Jon Stewart on this. I'm starting to think maybe that Iraq War was a mistake.
At least someone's getting some benefits out of Iraq.
Jessica Valenti tweeted, Todd Aiken, is that you? Chambliss blames military rapes on the hormone level created by nature.
Oh, heterosexual men are such weak, fragile creatures.
Saxby Chambliss sounds to me like the guy who rapes a village full of people in some like Civil War era romance novel. And he's like the bad guy. He sounds like a fiction. Saxby Chambliss was here, the latest swooned, and he took advantage of them.
Well, if there are 2 areas that I trust Republicans on, it's women's reproduction and biology. So I'm with Saxby on this.
Time Magazine correspondent Michael Shearer, he tweeted, Drudge smackdown of Christie. Chris Christie to spend $24 million in New Jersey tax money on special election to avoid Cory Booker.
This is pork he created, and now he's gonna have to eat it.
I'm surprised he's afraid of Cory Booker because Cory Booker is a hero, and Chris Christie eats heroes for breakfast and lunch and dinner.
Chris Christie, the tax and spend coward.
ESPN SportsCenter, they tweeted, breaking, MLB preparing to suspend Alex Rodriguez, Ryan Braun, and others. Founder of Miami PED Clinic is cooperating. I'm actually shot up on hosting steroids right now, so I really can't comment on this one.
Oh, I think it's interesting that on the heels of the Jason Collins story, we now find that some of the top players in Major League Baseball have been taking it in the ass for many years now.
I heard they found out that they found out about this because performance-enhancing drugs shrink your A-Rod.
And you can always follow me on Twitter.
All right, guys, that is the point. I'm Dave Rubin. You can find me on the Rubin Report here at the Young Turks Network. That's Malcolm Fleschner, Desi, Doyen, Brett Erlich. Their Twitters are all below. All kinds of links and fun stuff to find them. Thanks for watching, and I promise you, Anna will be back next week. Okay.